Hey, welcome to the Rain and Morale podcast. So do you ever feel like screaming out in the office, on Zoom or outside the school gates, for the love of God, come on, really? Then if this is you and you're looking for an honest, fun and frank podcast on life and business, then sit back and listen to me, Rain and Morale. I'll be bringing great people on the show to talk, share and debate their life experiences and business challenges, keeping the show unpolished, but in a fun and unique British style, with sarcasm, tenacity, and maybe a few swear words or tears. This podcast keeps it real, honest, raw, and removes the bullshit in the only way I know how, through authenticity and getting shit done. Think of it less like the Housewives of New York or Towie with the lipo and drama, and more like the house lives of the real world. I hope you'll take something away to be better informed, laugh, smile, or maybe even finally getting the confidence to shout, come on really. So enjoy. Hi Ranju, welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
Hi Rona, I'm well and thank you for having me on today.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. So for the listeners, Ranjan Mahatani is the executive chairman of Epic Group. And for those people that don't know what Epic Group is, it's one of the largest global apparel manufacturers in the world, and has some really strong ethics and ethos around sustainability and employee welfare. And here in the UK, we've been having lots of bad press about fast fashion, how employees are treated. And I had the pleasure a few years ago, pre-COVID, of working with Ranju in his team, and I was really blown away by the setup there. So I wanted to kind of bring a more positive slant to the apparel manufacturing industry. Ranju cut his teeth at a very young age in the garment industry, and 4 decades later is now producing over 120 million garments with factories in Bangladesh, Vietnam, Jordan, Ethiopia. And your head office is in Hong Kong, which is, I think, where you are right now. It's starting to look a little bit better. Yeah. And we had to reschedule the podcast because there was a typhoon recently. So welcome to the show, Ranju. And it's an absolute pleasure to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you. It's my pleasure. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, so listen, what I wanted to do first, if that was okay, was just to dive into one area that's talked about a lot here, and that's employee welfare. Now, I had the pleasure of visiting Bangladesh and Ethiopia on my travels with you. Can you talk to us a little about some of the initiatives you have in place for your employees, specifically around, because it's so female orientated?
Yeah, so I'll talk more about the workers because those are the most important associates in our company, right? They are the ones that they bring the bread and butter to the table. So, from a very young, an early stage of the company, we felt that the basic ethics need to be in place in a garment factory. Garment factories are very oftenly, termed as sweatshops, But so we started with the basics, no underage labor, treating the workers with respect. I mean, we were in a third world country which had not developed when I went there back in the 80s. And you could get away with anything, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Raising your voice, sometimes physical abuse, because supervisors and managers had that culture, and we had to work very hard to inculcate that as a company. That's not part of our culture. We're an international company, and we treat workers with respect, and especially the females with respect. So that was a long, arduous journey. I think it took about 4 or 5 years to set that culture in. Obviously, after that, we started doing a lot of more advanced things for our associates. And, I think the first thing is treating them with respect. And then after that was really, about facilities, right? So, I think we were the first company in Bangladesh to start an electronic payroll. We set up ATM machines in the factory. And going back 20 years ago, I used to go to the factory and see these trolleys of cash going through with envelopes. And God knows who took a cut from the poor lady's salary. And it drove me berserk. And they said, you can't do it because you can't open 20,000 bank accounts. But we managed to do it. We set up help desk. We built the ATMs, and we've been doing that. And as a step up now in the last 1 year, now we use a mobile app. So they don't even
Okay.
need the ATM. The workers have become so savvy. They receive the money on the phone. They're paying their bills on the phone. So I think that we should never underestimate our associates. And if we provide them the scope, they're definitely willing to improve their lives. And that's really what I would say our focus is on improving their lives. We recently took 5 workers. We sent them to the University for Women in Chittagong, which is an international university. Uh, we spent $500,000 on those 5 ladies
Right.
for a 5-year course. And I was amazed. I mean, there's a video that we have on social media. These workers turned into like executives, like young college students speaking fluent English, uh,
Right.
have decided on their own career path.
Okay.
So those are a few things that we keep doing. I mean, for our workers, we did something called Clean Vision. We
Right.
checked 25,000 people. We gave them an eye test. We gave 6,000 spectacles to workers who had bad eyesight, who would normally not even know that they have bad eyesight. you
Yeah.
know. So I can keep talking till the cows come home, but our focus is to improve their lives.
No, absolutely. And I guess when you first started the ATM program, that would have been, of course, groundbreaking. And also, I think giving your associates the empowerment for their own finances, which I think is hugely important. So congratulations for doing that. One of the other things that I saw when I was there as well was the facilities around childcare, and also you touched on a little bit there, but about educational programs and training, and even down to having small hospitals and doctor facilities. Can you talk to us a little bit about why you introduced those?
No, I mean, we've had that from inception, because if you have large factories, there are going to be medical emergencies and injuries and sometimes sickness. So, a lot of people set up a small medical room just to pass compliance. But our intention was to set up like a mini clinic or a hospital with qualified doctors and nurses and ambulances, and
Right.
provide them the right medical treatment. And I have a first-hand experience a couple of times, because I fell sick in a factory with high blood pressure, and I was given
Wow.
the right medication. And I'm pretty well versed with medications, and I'm pretty finicky about doctors. So that was a good first-hand experience that my workers are being treated well. We set up daycare facilities. I must say that I wish we could set up a much larger capacity, because in each of our factories we are able to accommodate 100, 150 children. But a lot
Right.
of mothers prefer to leave their kids in that amenity of ours, which has got a lot of nowadays even a PlayStation and stuff like that, and get their meals. Unfortunately, the waiting list is very long. I mean, we can't have daycare centers for 5,000 kids, but these are small things that we can do for our workers. And I don't know whether, Rona, you saw when you went to Bangladesh, but we set up a mini university.
Yes, I
And
visited that.
so we're constantly training workers. We've opened 2 more now. And,
Fantastic.
there's physical training, there's sports. So it's not just about training, it's about also extracurricular activities.
Yeah, and I've seen some of the, obviously supporting some of the religious celebrations, and also I think the areas around your factories as well. And that's something I wanted to touch on as well, about having those green zones, if you like, to help with that kind of mind health, and having a space to go. But yeah, I think could you talk to us a little bit about some of the courses and the training that you do outside of what you would expect for a garment manufacturing, in terms of how we're empowering them?
So you see, I mean, obviously there's a lot of machine training and what we call technical training, which I won't talk about. But what we try to do is spend literally 2 days to first explain to them about the company and the culture,
Mhm.
right? And it's really from top to bottom and bottom to top. So So how we describe our culture is two ways. We are the people who are never happy, right? No matter what we do, we're never happy. And that's why we say relentless pursuit of better. And we must be better every day, and yesterday's better is not good enough for us. You know what I mean? So that is
Yeah.
what we want to inculcate into our workers. And we want to inculcate into our workers that their ideas will make us a better company. If operator is stitching on a machine, she should be able to be the best person to improvise the process and not us, because then she becomes the expert on the machine. After that, we do a lot of training for basic hygiene, etiquettes, mannerisms, and how you treat your fellow members with respect. So this is a
Right.
week-long training that we do, which
Mhm.
is kind of replenished every 6 months, and then they go into a 2 week mixed course of technical training along with physical and extracurricular sports activities. Because
Amazing.
we understand that the attention span cannot last for a whole day. So when they are looking forward to lunch and some sports after, it keeps them intrigued to come back next day and listen very intently.
No, absolutely, and it's honestly, it really is incredible. I have to say, I truly was blown away by some of the facilities that you have, and you touched a little bit there about lunchtime. To most people, that's nipping out of the office, going to buy something for lunch. Tell me a little bit about some of the facilities that you provide for the associates with food.
Well, see, first of all, I think we've got very modern canteens. I would say they are canteens like my son has in a college in a university in America, clean, nice, uh, and we provide a full lunch to them. There are televisions all over the canteen, large televisions which play cultural programs and the Bangladesh news and stuff like that, so that because they only get that short break of 1 hour and ideas for them to be able to relax. We've
Yeah.
also got a lot of mats and mini roll up beds there so that if they want to take a short snooze after lunch. So we've thought about the small things about their habits and try to make them more comfortable.
No, absolutely. I have to say the food is fantastic as well. So I had the pleasure of eating there as well. No, that's incredible, and this is what I wanted to kind of bring to the forefront. People who are leading in transformation and leading in sustainability in an industry that can be seen as very much. We've here in the UK heard a lot about Shein recently and the 18-hour shifts, 1 day off a month, money being withheld, and I think how we empower, and whilst I'll not talk about unless you mention the brands that you produce for, and they are global leading brands, we have a choice here, especially in the West, about where we choose to buy our clothes and the impact of those individuals. So I really wanted to touch on that whole welfare element. But what I'd love to talk about now as well is what you've been doing around the Green Factory. And whilst the welfare of the associates is hugely important, you have got, these huge factories all over the world. So tell me a little bit about how you're trying to transition into a greener industry.
Sure. Before I get straight away to that question, I'll tell you the real, the encouragement, the passion behind it. So there are always two kinds of approaches. One is you're doing things because you're forced to do it, or you're doing it to pass compliance, or because you're trying to stay abreast with your competition. The second approach is because you believe in it. You feel it's the right thing to do. Then you do it full-heartedly and you do it sensibly. So for us, luckily, it's the latter from the beginning, and whether it's our workers, because that's part of sustainability. If you can't look after your people, you can't become a green factory. We believe in what we do. Therefore, our stories are real. And, I'm amazed that, if I was to leave the company for 6 months and come back, I wouldn't recognize my own company. That's how fast we're changing. A few recent things. There's solar power in all our new factories, right?
Yeah.
We've started changing the effluent treatment plants in all our factories. We've done 2 so far. We use the membrane therapy, and quite honestly, the water that comes out is pure water, it's transparent water. I'm not going to tell you to drink it, but it's pure water, right?
Okay.
Whereas, no, so it's very modern effluent treatment plants. We've invested close to $2 million in each of those plants, and having
Right.
so many factories, that's a significant investment. Then, we put in sensors and building management systems into all our companies so that we are measuring the carbon emissions,
Yeah.
a lot of it revolves around our washing. We started changing all our washing machines to what we call the rainforest machines. They
Right.
consume 40% less water, right?
Hmm.
I think we're 90% there. And we're constantly looking for new technology where we reduce chemicals, we reduce hazardous waste. Just about 2 months ago, we signed up with a company called Clean Core in collaboration. With some treatment on fabrics, we're able to drastically reduce wastage, which has been
Right.
well advertised. And we're launching it in a big way with our few customers, and they'll be in the stores in the next few months. So I probably say that there's now a multiple approach in our company, and all because they believe in it. Obviously, we were 100% BCI 4 years ago,
Hmm.
uh, and now we're going more and more into organic and lensing and tencel. So there's a lot of innovation going on the fabric side, which is also
Yes.
very important. So it's multifaceted. There's not enough you can do. Now, when there's not enough you can do, and there's such huge investments, that's where we come in and we believe in it so that we do it prudently, we do it phase wise, and we also do a return on investment. So, like, how do we justify the solar power? Why are we doing the ETP? So we also make a financial math out of it because you just can't keep investing as a garment factory without making financial sense of it. So we do that part so that our vigor is not dampened by
Yeah.
the expenditure. And there's no limit to how much you can invest into these improvements.
No, absolutely. And actually, you've touched on a really important subject now. I was on a panel last night and somebody asked me the question, how do you work with people when it comes to investing in green technology or transition? Because a lot of people see it as it's too expensive, I'm not going to do it. So can you talk a little bit about, obviously you've made some of these big investments. How are you seeing the return on investment? Is it by sort of more orders from clients because you are doing what you're doing, or actually genuinely having savings through energy and water and wastage and consumption?
No, we really save on the energy and the electricity consumption, and that's how we get our payback. We don't get any orders because we are more sustainable. It's only one compartment of qualifying as a supplier.
Right.
Only, I mean, now today there are 267 green factories in Dhaka. Doesn't mean all of them are going to get business, right? Because as a manufacturer today, you have to offer design, you have to deliver goods to the consumer, you have to deliver goods to the store. It's multifaceted. Besides having good factories, sustainability, don't get me wrong, is very important, but you got to have the product, the price. So it's a lot of things put together. So we do the sustainability and the green, one, because we believe in it. And most of it, 80% of it is done with a payback, which is a
Right.
tangible payback. 20% is invested into people where the payback is happy faces.
Amazing, incredible. And are you finding there is more requests and pressure through the supply chain on the topics of sustainability? So are you getting it top down, and then how are you working through your supply chain around helping and assisting rather than, I guess, beating them up over their sustainability plans?
Yeah, so I mean, we don't get so much pressure from our customers because we are very forthcoming in what we do. So it's more a collaboration. It's not pressure. Now, when we go down to our suppliers, we realized about 3 years ago that it's impossible for us to do anything because we have too many suppliers. So we started consolidating the supplier base and started giving more business to fewer suppliers so that we become more important to them. And when we became more important to them, we set out our sustainability requirements with them. And we have a team which frequents these mills like once every couple of months. and does, a measuring as per the Higgs index,
Yeah.
right? And that's our barometer, and we've seen a lot of improvement. And again, we also started moving into more affluent mills who have more international exposure where we don't have to start from scratch.
So they've got the kind of reporting already, the data,
Well,
etc.
they've got 50%, so then we help them and we work as a team. It's collaboration.
And again, I'm being facetious in my questions because I kind of know how you would, you wouldn't be beating them up. You'd be working collaboratively. And I think that's what we need the message to get across. And also the fact that the identification between having to do it and believing the need to do it for the planet. Talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about the water affluence. So water, dyes, chemicals are all, of course, a topic of conversation around what we pump out back into into the soils and the rivers, etc. So whilst it might not be human grade consumption water, it's suitable for agriculture, waterways, etc.
So, I mean, you've been to Dhaka, Rona, and you can see the rivers and all, they have all kinds of filth and dye stuff. So when we did these ETPs in the factory, somebody told me, no matter what you discharge, there's so much other filth over there. So I said, I'm not going to commit a murder because everybody else is committing a murder. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
So what we can do is we can control our premises. We can discharge clean water because we are sincerely concerned that that water, if it went into the hands of children or something, would be severely toxic. For us, the affluent treatment plant is very important because I think water is the key element that we attack through our washing, through our wastage, and the solar power and all is secondary and third. And again, just going back to an earlier question, Rona, when we're not chasing money and when we're not chasing and doing it for the right reason, you always get rewards. For example, 6 months ago, HSBC signed up. We were the first people to sign up a sustainability finance program with significantly lower bank charges. And now we're in the process of doing it with Standard Chartered Bank.
Amazing.
So it pays you indirectly. You know what I mean? But you do it for the right reason. For me, during this podcast with you, I want to tell you that the reason why we've had a little bit of success and we're never going to say we're perfect is because we believe in it.
No, absolutely. And I think just, it's the reality is a lot of this isn't rocket science. It's about what we pump into our soils and waterways, and of course as humans we connect with all those elements of nature and consume all of those. So it's just fantastic to hear all the processes and work that are going on, and that's really what I wanted to give was the good story about transformational leaders like yourself and everybody at Epic. Could you give us a few examples of ideas maybe that some of the associates have come up with that you've actually embraced within the business?
Well, I think there's so many ideas. I mean, it started a while ago where we changed all the lights in the company to, lesser energy usage. We started changing the motors to all our machines because our maintenance team came in and said, start using servo motors. They consume less electricity. So we get ideas every day, of how we can improve it. I mean, recently an associate came up with a new idea for the drinking water for the workers.
Right.
We have what we call, I'm not very technical, but RO plants, right? And then, you have in these factories taps where you pull out the water and there's a contraption which you put in the tap, which further takes out any residue from the water. So it's small things, but makes a very big difference.
And that's again, and I'm a firm believer of that. The people actually working right in the nuts and bolts of any business really do have the best ideas. You touched earlier about toxins and toxic waste. What sort of innovations are you seeing in the apparel industry to kind of address that within the garments?
Well, I think that we've seen a lot of innovation on the chemical side, where a lot of hazardous chemicals, because the US government has also come out with a whole list of chemicals that are banned. So we've seen that there are a lot of chemical suppliers that have evolved and enhanced their chemicals, so that we don't, for example, we don't do potassium permanganate anymore. We don't use stones anymore, because there's artificial powder which gives you the same stone treatment, or we use lasers. So I think there's a lot of innovation going on in that respect. And again, like I was talking to you about the washing, but lasers are so important. Now we've got, like, in our factory EGMs here, we've got about 14 lasers. Now, these are pretty expensive equipment, but first of all, you're automating. Number two, you're getting more green. Number three, you're standardizing the product. So it also enhances your quality. So I think that is one area. Then the entire building management system, I have a lot of respect for, because, if you have a small hole in your roof, you won't come to know about it unless you see the water coming through. But the building management system has sensors which exactly will point out to you where you have a problem in the building. So I think there's a lot of innovation and technology, and it's constant. We can't sometimes cope up with it.
I think that's a fair summary, actually. I think anything to do with sustainability can be very, very overwhelming in terms of the challenges that we face and the opportunities, more importantly, that are there. I wanted to kind of talk to you lastly, really, about how do you see the future for the garment industry? So, for example, and what I mean by that is, as we look to a more circular approach to our garments, so new items reused, patched, in terms of sales, we're starting to see that here in the UK. My worry is, so then what do we do with these hundreds of thousands, millions of garment workers that we have globally? If we did truly move circular, do you feel that that's going to be in the future? And because the amount of garment waste that is in landfill globally now is truly shocking. This, fast fashion. How do you see the industry transitioning to address fast fashion, and also what would we do with all those associates in a circular economy?
So, first of all, so much has changed in the last 4 years. See, with COVID, and also the way trends and fashions have changed, the way people are dressing, you know what I mean? It's more polyester, it's more Lululemon, it's more comfort, you know what I mean? So that's one aspect of it. Then I think post-COVID, there was big spending, because in places like America, there were big stimulus checks. Now, obviously, when the stimulus checks stopped, the spending stopped, and then we see a mini recession, and then we see an interest hike. So I think we're going to see pretty rocky waters for the next 2-3 years. Number one. Now, that itself is going to create lesser demand in an industry which has got oversupply. So I think the short-term ramifications are a lot of consolidations and more losers than winners. That is really my unfortunate prediction for the next 2-3 years, and I hope that I'm totally wrong, because I'll be happy to be wrong. You know what I mean? Long term, I think garment manufacturing is not manufacturing anymore. It's about world-class factories with sustainability, with design, at the end of the day, to be able to satisfy the consumer. Whether you do it through a retailer, whether you do it through a brand, whether you bring your own brand to the table. So what I feel is garment manufacturing is about disruption, right? You're going to have to do nearshoring. You're going to have a combination of nearshoring and overseas global sourcing. A lot is going to change. I don't think that we are ever going to see in the next 10 years the ability to replace the human beings who do the intensive work. You may have robots to make T-shirts, but they're definitely not going to be able to stitch a cargo pant. That maybe that may be 20 years down the line, but I like to think at least for the next 10 years. But definitely you're going to see a survival of the fittest, which means there is going to be people who lose their jobs because the industry definitely needs to consolidate.
Yeah.
In the long term, I think that it's not about the associates because uh, economies start booming, economies start evolving. Countries like India, if they don't do garments, they'll do something else. It's countries like Bangladesh which are more dependent on garments.
Yeah.
I believe the way the country is evolving and diversifying and going into bicycles and footwear and things like that, there'll always be jobs for them. Their GDP is good. The
Right.
second generation is coming. The education levels are being raised.
Yeah.
And that's all good signs for a country where they don't have to be dependent on just garments,
And I think that's really good to hear, because I think that was I was this guy was talking the other night about he's got this kind of full circular material, and within that material and the infrastructure to be able to get it back, repurpose and put it out again with this. It's got this small chip in it that you know where the garment is at any one time. Slightly freaked me out because I thought, oh God, I don't want my kids knowing where I am permanently.
Sorry to interrupt you, but which is probably the most automated country in the world? I would say the USA, and there's a tremendous shortage of workers.
Yeah.
So that should answer some questions.
Yeah. And that's good. It makes me feel better. I can think, because having spent time in those countries and, I've traveled extensively, your fear through all of this automation, technology, innovation is that, well, we're still left with millions of humans that are fabulous people with bright ideas, intelligence, children, all of this. And so it's kind of how we protect humanity through those transitions that I guess is really important.
No, what you're talking about is a few decades. It's not going to happen in the next 5-10 years. And, when it happens in a few decades, these people would also have evolved.
Yeah, well, I hope so, for the sake of, I guess all of our children. And well, listen, I just thank you so much for coming on the show. It's really important that the listeners and people hear about companies like Epic Group, who are both ethically, sustainably and transforming the global apparel industry, right from its associates to the amazing food you give them every day, to the banking, the facilities, the training, the childcare, right through to the solar, the affluent water. I just want to kudos to you and your team for continuing to take that challenge and invest and lead the industry. So thank you so much, Ranju.
Thank you. I'm absolutely flattered that you have given me this opportunity today. And again, I apologize for the reschedule due to the typhoon. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you, Rona.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
So that's it. You've made it. The show's over. Thank you for being with us. I hope you've been able to take something away, maybe solve a problem, or just know you're not alone. Here's hoping it made you smile with a few laughs along the way. Please feel free to find me on all social media channels, and you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just search the Road and Morale podcast. Have an awesome day and see you next time.